Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with legendary jazz pianist Kenny Barron. We caught up with this brilliant artist about his new 2024 CD, Beyond This Place, an upcoming fall 2024 European tour, and his life dedicated to jazz. He was honored by the National Endowment for the Arts in 2010 as a jazz master, and we asked him about what it has meant for him in his career. The Los Angeles Times has named him one of the top pianists in the world, and Jazz Weekly calls him the most lyrical piano player of our time. This Philadelphia-born master talks about the modern young cats he plays with, those who helped him in the very beginning, and so much more. It was an honor, and it's a conversation you need to hear. Enjoy.
Thank you, sir, for taking a minute after the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So I absolutely love Beyond This Place. It's such a wonderful album. So much is going on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm curious, before we get to this album, you know, you've been around for a long time. You've done quite a bit in the world of jazz. How did you survive the pandemic? How did that affect you in the way that you do work now?
Well, there wasn't a lot of work then, obviously.
Yeah.
How did I survive? Well, luckily I'm old enough to get Social Security, so, that was a very big help,
Yeah.
And at the time, New York State was offering a certain amount of money for what they call gig workers. That's people who didn't have a steady job, So they paid you X amount of money through the New York State office. So I was able to get some money from that. So that kind of helped sustain me. Because there was no work, absolutely none. So during the pandemic, I think the only work I did was a couple of clubs had like live streaming because they were all closed. So I did a live streaming at Smoke and a live streaming thing for another club. So that it paid a minimal amount of money, but I was able to survive.
Talk to me about Beyond This Place. Talk to me about the latest album. It kind of commemorates your 80th year of doing such wonderful work. What did this album mean for you?
Well, first of all, it was great to play with the young saxophonist, Emmanuel Wilkins, and that's one of the live stream things I did during the pandemic at the Village Vanguard. Because we were supposed to actually do a week there, and they closed. So at a certain point, they asked me about doing a live stream. So I did that with a quartet with Emmanuel. So that was the first time we really had a chance to play together. And I decided I wanted to use, because he's a very exciting player, very exciting, adventurous. So I fell in love with his playing, and plus he's a really nice gentleman, which is a big plus in my book as well, And then Steve Nelson I've known since 1973 when I started teaching at Rutgers University. He was already a student there. So, and I've always loved his playing, And of course, Kiyoshi Kitagawa and Jonathan are part of my regular trio. So it was kind of a no-brainer. So we had a chance to do a short tour in Europe, and a chance to do this recording in Paris. So I pulled out some music and did some new things and some old things as well. We kind of revisited some old things, And I think it came out. Okay,
So speaking of a young player like Emmanuel Wilkins, I mean, I'm sure it was a huge deal for him to be around someone as legendary as you. I'm curious, in your career, when you go back to your beginnings, who was that musician for you that you learned from that might have been a big break or a big moment for you?
Well, actually, there were a couple. The first one was James Moody, who I met 1961 when I moved to New York. He was playing at the Five Spot. And I just went around there to hang out. And he knew my brother. He knew my brother Bill. So he said, come on and play, you know. So I went up and played, and he hired me. He had a great sextet, the trumpet player named Dave Burns, and Tom McIntosh on trombone, who was also writing a lot of the music at the time. Bass player Steve Davis, who played with John Coltrane. And so that was a great experience. And through Moody, I got the gig with, he recommended me for the gig with Dizzy. And that was another big break for me. And I stayed there for 4 years.
I just kind of wanted to segue a little bit into, being a jazz master and someone that's had such a breadth of experience in the world of jazz. What do you try to teach the younger players? Is there anything that you really want them to kind of take away to make that flame brighter for the next generation?
Well, I think number one, in terms of their own development, is just to listen. That's the most important thing. Listen to the music. And listen to all kinds of music. Don't be a snob, a musical snob. When I was coming up, I played R&B. I played all kinds of stuff. When I moved to New York, I used to play gypsy weddings. All kinds of things. You can learn something from every experience. So that's the thing I'm trying to be conversant with all kinds of music, because you never know what you're going to be called upon to do. You aren't always going to be a jazz star, quote unquote jazz star. So sometimes you got to survive. Which may mean playing some other kind of music. Which you become conversant with it. So I think that's important. That's important. And I look at a lot of the older players that I played with, and they grew up playing rhythm and blues and played in all kinds of bands. So I think that's important. Just in terms of being able to work, number one, and practice.
Yeah. So are you encouraged by the young cats that are out now? You're talking about Emmanuel Wilkins and a lot of these guys. In your career, you've seen a lot of changes in the world of jazz and music. What are you encouraged by? How do you feel about the younger generations now?
Oh, I feel great about them. I'm very much encouraged by what they're doing, and because the music has to develop, it has to evolve. Not necessarily that you're going to love all the things that you hear, but that's okay. That's part of the music evolving. But yeah, and I'm very much encouraged. I just listened to an album by a new record recording by pianist Sullivan Fortner, and he blew me away. Another one of my students, Gerald Clayton. When Gerald studied with me at Manhattan School of Music, just for his father sent him to study with me for a year. And at the time when he was playing, we played duets together. That's how we studied. We played a lot of two-piano stuff, and I could really hear what he needed and things like that. And at the time, his playing was more like Oscar Peterson, So he's got chops. And then when I heard his first recording, it had nothing to do with that, His first recording was incredible. Was spoken word. He's got a great imagination, great writer, So whenever he's in New York, I go to hear him, So I'm very much encouraged by what the younger players are doing.
Speaking of live music, I want to go back to your beginnings. What was the first live show, whether it was jazz or otherwise, that you saw that started that dream, that made you think, I want to be on that stage one day?
Well, probably one of the first, I'll have to go back to this little story. The first live music I ever heard was actually in my living room. And we had, at the time, we had an old beat-up upright piano, and we didn't have a refrigerator. We had an ice box. And the iceman would come and deliver ice. His name was Jimmy. And after he put the ice in the icebox, before he would leave, he would sit down at the piano and play and sing. All he could sing and play was the blues, but that had a lasting impression on me. So, I kind of evolved from that. I fell in love with the blues, and then but my brother, I would have to credit my brother with this. For the first gig I ever did was with my brother, Bill. And it was playing at a dance. It was called, we called them cabarets. And it was a dance where you had to play for a singer, a dancer, usually an exotic dancer, a comedian. It's like a variety show. And it was great. It was great. I learned a lot of repertoire, number one, because the exotic dancers would dance to Duke Ellington, things like that, Caravan or standards, So I learned repertoire from that, So and a lot of the music had a backbeat, which was fine. So I played all of that. I played all of that kind of stuff, all good.
So you had mentioned the blues kind of being the indoctrination. Kansas City's known for having that blues style that's part of our sound. So I'm curious, what kind of experiences, what kind of memories do you have of coming to Kansas City?
Wow, it's been so long ago. I think I came there with singer Kevin Mahogany.
Yeah.
I think I came there with him, And he was a great blues singer, It's been so long since I've been to Kansas. I was in Kansas City, But the blues and steaks. That's what.
Good play to meet, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you've been so decorated over your career with Grammys and with so many awards and accolades. But I'm curious, what was the one award that you got that just threw you off guard, that was unexpected?
Well, I've never gotten a Grammy, so.
Well, I mean,
nominations, yeah. But I think the NEA thing, that was the biggest thing. The National Endowment for the Arts, So that, for me, that was the biggest thing. That was quite an honor, So I was very happy with that.
Yeah. You've dedicated your life to this art form. You've made so many people happy. You've evolved so much over your career. At the end of the day, why do you love this art form? Why do you love jazz?
Oh, it's not a difficult question. The answer is really very simple. Because it's fulfilling for me. I love it. I could not imagine doing anything else. I really can't. So, I mean, from the time I was a teenager, I never thought about doing anything else. I started playing out, when I was like 14 or 15 years old. And the thought of doing something else just never occurred to me. The only time it ever occurred to me to get another job is when I left Dizzy. It was kind of an impulsive thing when I left. And being young, I was like 22 when I quit, something like that. And I didn't really prepare. Like I said, when I quit, it was kind of impulsive. And I didn't really save money at the time. So when I quit, married, had a child, and my wife was pregnant with a second child, So we were in a financial bind then. So when I got back to New York, I said, I'm going to have to get a job. So that's the one time I thought about getting a day job, just to survive and pay the rent and stuff like that. And I actually got some applications, and fortunately, I didn't have to send them out because my neighbor started calling me, and that was Freddie Hubbard. He lived right around the corner from me. So he started calling me to make some gigs in the city, So I started freelancing just around New York, so I was very happy about that. So freelancing with different people, working a lot with Freddie. So fortunately, I did not have to get a day job,
Yeah. So you're getting ready to hit the road. You're going to Europe. What does it mean after all these years to be able to go out and perform this music in front of fans that loved you and love your music and your legacy? How does it feel?
I'm thankful that I'm still able to do it. I'm very thankful. You know, traveling gets a little weary sometimes. Not playing, but just the act of getting there. You know, that gets a little trying sometimes. You know, up and down, and 10-mile walks through the airport and stuff like that. You know, but I'm happy that I'm able to do it. You know, I'm still healthy enough to do it. You know, and now and then I get a backache or something like that, or you know, things like that. But you know, there's medicine for that. So
yeah. So
you know,
Kenny, yeah, for sure. So at the end of the day, Kenny, everyone out there has this perception or idea of who they think you are. Family, friends, your legions of fans, but ultimately you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't know. You know, we see ourselves one way, and other people see us another way. You know, so I'm not quite sure. That's a very difficult question to answer. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I just see myself as a musician making the gig. You know, nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah. Well, you've done it well, sir. I appreciate you taking a minute out today to talk about the new album, your tour, and to touch on your career. You brought innumerable joy, I know, to me and my audience and the world of jazz. So thank you, sir. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and legends in Philadelphia, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Kenny, it was an honor. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.